Welcome to the show. We hope you have a blast. Thanks for making time for the Dealer Talk podcast. Another business leader, here's a penny for your thoughts. This ain't a regular conversation, baby. This that Dealer Talk. Yeah, this that Dealer Talk.
What up? Welcome to another episode of the Dealer Talk podcast. This is your host, Herb Anderson. We are trying out our new platform here, which is Riverside. So apologies in advance, but we're going to plow through this because that's what we do here. What's up, Charity? How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Happy podcasting.
Try out this new thing. It's weird not to have the camera control thing. I'm sure there's a way to do it here. We just haven't figured it out.
I knew that was going to be the first thing that you noticed.
But they do have some cool stuff. Like we can do this now.
I can't see what you're doing.
Oh, you can't hear it, huh? They have the sound box, and you can put like drum roll and clapping. But interesting.
That must be because I'm on the guest side and you're on the boss.
No, but I thought you could hear it. Maybe it's something
side.
that when we download the episode, like those noises will be there. But anyway,
I don't know.
We will get used to this and get better and better at it. So today is our last episode officially for season 7. And we're going to talk about season 8 here in a little bit. But before that, how was your holidays? Getting back into the swing of things?
Yeah. Holidays were good. My kids were with me the whole month, so that was nice. We actually didn't even put up a Christmas tree this year.
How come?
They didn't want to. It was just the 3 of us, so we just hung out.
Awesome. When I first got divorced, my kids wanted to do, our first like Christmas together. They wanted to do spooky Christmas. So we had like a Halloween-esque type of a Christmas, which is kind of cool, I have to say. But,
do you have pictures?
I don't know. I'm sure I have some around, but it was a really small tree. It was, maybe like this big or something.
That's my problem is that I have like a little tree. It's like 3 feet tall or something, and I never get a new one. And so every year we're like, I forgot we had that one.
Right on. Yeah.
You should send me a picture and I'll put it in the thing so everybody can see your spooky Halloween.
Yeah, if I can find one. What about for New Year's? Did you do anything?
So, we're huge Lord of the Rings fans. And by we, I mean me. And then I make them watch it with me. And so we binge watched the Rings of Power. And then they were annoyed with me by the end because I was explaining everything to them.
Is that the new series?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Some Lord of the Rings people really don't like the series, but I liked it.
You think it's good?
Yeah.
Worthy?
But if you're going with like, you're sticking to canon, it breaks away from the canon. If we start talking about this, you're going to really discover what a nerd I am. So we don't have to keep going.
Why not?
It breaks away from the canon a lot, and they add characters into the TV show that aren't actually characters in the books anywhere. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not good unless the introductions make it better. But
I think it makes it better.
Those it's always hard to do that with those long series because you can't. When you're doing a movie, man, you just can't pack everything in there. Well,
and then for Lord of the Rings, the fan base is so big that when they made the Lord of the Rings movies, they actually invested a lot of time into talking to people within the fan base to make sure they were getting it right.
Right on. Very cool.
See, I told you that. We could talk about something other than Lord of the Rings. We watched all of them. It was fun. And then I posted a picture on my Instagram because we were sitting there eating cookies and I looked over and my daughter was using this cup. And I was like, thanks for stealing my mug there, kid.
Very cool.
What did you do?
I took a trip with my girlfriend. We went to Paraguay. She's from there. And it's our second year doing it. and it was amazing. I really like it there. I haven't been able to go back home to Venezuela in like since 2010 because I don't have the paperwork, and all the embassies are closed, and it's just a mess. So being able to go to Paraguay has been amazing. It's very similar. There's a lot of similarities in the culture and just the way things look and the vibe and all that. So it was really cool.
It feels like going home.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, for sure.
That's
and
good.
her family's like super
Close.
inviting and welcoming, and that's nice, you know. But yeah, it was.
So, personal question: would it be dangerous to go to Venezuela for you?
Well, I can't get in, so
hypothetically.
But yeah, I think anybody that goes to Venezuela right now, there's look, anywhere you go, there's going to be danger, right? It doesn't matter. Like I traveled a bunch of places, especially when I had my export company, and I got robbed at Rio one time, like out of all places. It was the only time I've ever had any issues. So it's like stuff can happen anywhere, you know, but Venezuela's going through a lot of challenging times. So, yeah.
When I was researching, when I was looking at news for today, I was reading, and you know how they arrested the cartel guy's son the other day? Did you read that in the news?
Yeah, Chapo's son.
Well, apparently there was a gunfight at an airport in Mexico, and so there was this plane, a commercial plane, full of tourists that was trying to take off, and then the military landed and got into a shootout, and the plane got shot, and they were trying to get all of these tourists out of the way of the whole thing. And I was like, wow.
So, yeah. Not fun.
No.
Got a little
Go to Mexico, they said.
Yeah.
I love Mexico, so.
Yeah, but I mean, stuff can happen anywhere, man. So if you're going to not travel because of that, then
don't go to Vegas.
Don't go anywhere. All right. So today's a special one. It's the last episode of season 7. This season has been just a different take on the show altogether. We went with long format, close to 2 hours. I think our average episode was 1 hour and 45 minutes. We introduced some segments. We did the blog post. We did the automotive news section. I like the vibe of it. I really enjoyed it. It kind of keeps us sharp, and looking at things more closely for the show, and then obviously for what we do professionally. But and then we had a Charity as a co-host. So I'm super interested in hearing people's feedback on it. But what did you think about the season, Charity?
I liked it a lot. I've learned a ton this year. Not just about podcasting and, producing a podcast, but about the industry that I work in. And that's been amazing. I loved that part of it. Yeah, I like it. I like what I do. I do.
See, it's funny because I started this for, how do I say it? I didn't realize that until the first season that we did, but exactly what you're saying right now. And then it became a selfish project for me, because the more people I have on and the different topics that we covered, the more I learned, and the more I was able to apply that to my day to day. So I'm glad that you're having that same experience. What did you think about the format? Do you think that it's too long? Do you like the way it's going? Or what do you think about?
Well, definitely that's a selfish thing for me. I think that it's a longer format and putting the news in. If we decide to record and then we don't post the episode for a minute, then the news, we have to find news that isn't time sensitive. But finding news in and of itself, that aspect of it has taught me tons about the industry. Like I wonder how many people that are in the automotive industry actually read the any kind of automotive news, you know? I mean, obviously you've got your like decision makers that do, but outside of that, and I think that that's the other thing that I've learned is this, I've always been very, very like, I have my job and I go to my job every day and I do my job and I go home. And then the more that I've been on here and the more that I've talked with you, I realize that my job is like just if you understand why your job exists, you are more capable of achieving the goals needed to succeed in your job. That's what I learned this year.
Yeah, and well, there's a professionalism of it too. Like and this doesn't apply for the automotive space only, but I think any career that you're in, you should always be learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like the learning should never stop.
For sure.
Especially in the fast-paced world that we live in today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like if you're not constantly consuming information about this industry or any industry for that matter, I think that you're at a disadvantage. And if you are, then that's an advantage because most people don't. Mm-hmm. So, and the other thing depends on your level of commitment. And, you know, I was watching this movie yesterday called Hustle with Adam Sandler. And there's a scene in there where he's talking to this prospect that he brought from Spain, and very talented basketball player, but he had this tryout or whatever, and he didn't perform well. And so the guy was kind of down, ready to quit and go home or whatever. And Adam Sandler's character was like, you know, he just asked him straight up, do you love this game? Do you live and breathe this game? Are you obsessed? And he used that word. Are you obsessed? And it got me thinking, that's such a powerful thing to be in whatever aspect or career rather you're in. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, he said that the character said, obsession beats talent every time. So I think if you're obsessed with what you do, then you'll never stop learning that thing. You'll always be consuming information about it. You'll always be learning about it. And that's why I like podcasts too, because it's a form of consuming information and you can get that information on your drive to work, when mm-hmm. you work out or whatever. And so, yeah.
What's the thing that Ziegler says about driving in your car and listening to audio tapes?
Yeah, it's like it's like the equivalent of a university. Mm-hmm. You know, like if you're spending any amounts of time in your vehicle and you're listening to music and you're not listening to a podcast or, you know, a lecture or something like that, you're missing out. So,
what is one of your favorite podcast episodes, that you listen to repeatedly?
For the season or just in general?
Just in general, on a non-dealer talk podcast. What's a recommendation of one episode?
One episode. I don't know. I mean, my favorite podcast is the DPB, the Dealer Playbook with Michael Cirillo. Love it. I just probably the one that it's hard to pick one because he's been on for so many seasons that it just, you know, like when you think you have a favorite one, it's like I've listened to the Gary Vee one multiple times, and that was mm-hmm. one of his early ones. I really liked that episode because I think it's very relevant even today to where we are in the industry. And that was a short one. I think that was a 15-minute or 20-minute one, but it's totally worth the listen. But right now, the one I'm listening to over and over again is one he did recently with Pasch. Mm-hmm. I really like that episode, and it kind of ties into what we're going to talk today with our guest, closing the show out with GA4, right? So, but yeah, that's one that I listen to all the time. So I highly suggest. I mean, I don't think anybody that's serious about the automotive space at this point that doesn't know about the dealer playbook. I just can't. There's no way. It's such a good podcast. So, you?
It's not an automotive podcast, but I use it in whenever I hire somebody, I have them listen to it. It's the Hidden Brain, but it's a specific episode. It's called The Influence You Have. It's unreal. It just talks about how you're more afraid of the no than the other person is. And that you'll go out of your way to avoid asking the questions because you think that they're going to say no more often than they actually do.
Yeah. Well, I think I've said this on the show before. I know I've told you this story, but I used to do this competition of get a lot of no's. Right. So I would have contest of whoever got the most no in a month, I would spiff them. You know what I mean? Because a no, you have to celebrate it, right? I think a lot of managers and decision makers they instill fear in a no. And that's, I think, a mistake. You want to encourage people to get comfortable getting that rejection, because once they break that barrier and they're comfortable with the rejection, everything changes for them. And not just in this or in automotive or any industry or salesmanship or whatever, but in life.
For sure. I mean? Oh yeah, so, 100%.
Anyways, a couple announcements here, and we'll get into it. So, spoiler alert, as I just said earlier, we are going to be closing out the season with a topic that I think is super relevant in the industry right now, and that's going to be GA4. And we have our good friend, Mr. George Nenni, on to talk. This is a previously recorded episode, but we wanted to leave this one here for the very last season. So, hope everybody enjoys it.
Very last episode. You said very last season. Not last season.
I did? Oh man, there's my subconscious.
Shh, don't say that out loud. Don't speak that into the universe.
So a couple things. So there's that episode with George Nenni that we're going to be closing out season 7 with. All about GA4. We're going to be talking about that one. Also, Charity and I are working on a GA4 modules that we're going to be putting on our website on dealertalk.io, and there'll be several modules in there of things that how we are using it, and you guys can go in there and check those out. We're going to start posting those here pretty soon, probably in the next couple of months, as we get closer to July, which is the cutoff point for Universal. So be on the lookout for that. And then we are jumping right into season 8 with a very special season. We've partnered up with the NIADA, and we're going to be recording episodes completely about that side of the industry. And we're really, really excited about this one to kind of explore 2 things. One is explore that side of the industry that I think, it's something that we are not that familiar with, number one. Number two, there's always lessons, right, that we can learn and apply to just in general in the space. I mean, look at that episode we had with
Paul Sansone.
Paul Sansone, yeah. Junior. You got to say junior. Definitely some lessons there for sure. I've had a couple of people reach out to me about that specific episode and trying to get in touch with Paul and people that are franchise dealers that really liked the information and what he's doing. And so hopefully there's some nuggets there that everybody can pick up in the season. And then at the same time, you know, I don't know what the future is if, you know, you know, and I don't think I've shared this with Charity or anybody publicly yet, but I don't know if I personally will keep doing it, you know, like consistently. So maybe what we'll do is we'll merge this into, maybe Charity will take it over and I'll do a couple episodes or so moving forward. I don't know. We'll see. Like, I know after season 8, we're going to take a pretty long break and we're going to figure out what the future holds. But,
yeah, thanks for just dropping that one on me right now. Appreciate that.
So, but I think Charity's done a really good job here at the show, and, you know, it'd be nice to kind of pass that on, but we'll see. I mean, nothing, you know, I know that we're going to jump right into season 8 with the NIADA season. And then we're going to be taking a long break to kind of figure out what the next iteration of the show is going to look like. But, for me personally, this has been an amazing project. It's something that I've had a lot of fun doing. And I want to continue to do it in some variation, but we'll see. I appreciate everybody that's been tuning in for the past 7 seasons.
Going, you know, you sound like you sound like you're stepping down right now, right?
No, I'm just saying, like, you know, there's going to be a change for sure after season 8, but I don't know what that's going to look like. So, and then, what else? And then we got a couple things coming on that are cooking that we're going to be sharing with everybody. Hopefully I know this year for sure, but we want to make sure that when we bring in these things up, that they're fully cooked and ready to roll. So, you know, we'll have some more releases, if you will, this season, or this year, excuse me. So,
one of them,
Charity,
being
any additions?
I was going to say one of them being more to do with Filicart.
Yes, for sure. Filicart has been amazing. We had the first one was incredible. We were able to help out some pretty amazing people. There's one, I mean, we're dropping some shorts and things like that to kind of share with everybody. But there were some pretty
humbling,
experiences and some pretty impactful stories, and I'm excited to share with everybody. I want to thank again Covideo and RunMyLease for their support, and anybody else, any other of our partners, or anybody listening to this, if you're a dealership and you want to participate in this event with us this year, get in touch with us. You know, you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. All our contact information is in the show notes, so you can go there. You can go to our website, dealertalk.io, and go to the Filicart page, and you know, you can reach or connect with us there. Excuse me.
For anybody who doesn't know what Filicart is, it is our endeavor to end hunger wherever we see it by filling carts of food for people in need.
Yes, and we did this one in Thanksgiving, but we go beyond that. Like, everybody that we were able to help this this first year of doing this, we bought like 2 or 3 weeks worth of groceries. There was one in particular that really kind of hit me, you know, pretty hard. And it's a lady that had 2 tumors, and she had brain surgery, and it was just her and her 3 daughters. And we were able to help her out, and I think we bought her like a month worth of groceries. So everything helps, and being able to be there for them in that moment was pretty humbling, and it just makes me want to do more, right, and be able to help out more people. So
We will.
If you want to collaborate with us and get on with us on that effort, please hit us up. Help us to help more people.
Okay.
All right. It's a fun-packed last episode of season 7. All right. So let's jump into some automotive news.
Automotive news for today. So, okay, first of all, if I switch to a different tab, can you still see me?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, the camera is not on the tabs. Just FYI.
Maybe the camera pauses when you go to a different tab.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Stop.
Oh, did you switch tabs?
I did.
I can still see you.
Stop. All right. Edmunds. Rising auto loan interest rates drive the monthly average payment to over $1,000 a month or more. Let me restate.
Wait, what kind of cars are these people buying, man?
I know, right? Well, mine is pretty up there too.
It's not 1,000. Okay, yeah. Okay.
A greater share of consumers are committing to monthly payments of $1,000 or more.
They're committing, yes, but that's not because of, in my opinion, that's not because of interest rates or anything. That's because they have cash and they're spending it.
Okay, the next thing is consumers are putting more money down on their purchase to offset rising costs. Average down payment for new and used vehicles hit record highs in Q4, climbing to $6,780 and $3,921 respectively. My brain was trying to figure out what the respectively was for. And the average interest rate has risen to 6.5%, wait, hang on, let me read that whole sentence. The average annual percentage rate on new finance vehicles climbed to 6.5% in Q4, compared to 5.7% in Q3 and 4.1% in Q4 of 21. The APR on used finance vehicles climbed to 10% in Q4, compared to 9% and 7.4%. Which makes me think of, was it the Chris Martinez who was like, listen, if you've been in the industry at all, you know that double-digit interest rates is not a new concept.
Yeah, sorry, my dog's like wreaking havoc over here. So if you see me, you're like, no.
Did you see the blooper reel that
I
sent you?
I did.
Where I'm scolding mine.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Yes. So here's the deal. Like, I'll state what I've already stated before. But number one, it comes down to education, right? The salesperson needs to overcome that. If the salesperson is scared of the interest rate situation, then they're going to project that onto the customer who's already scared, and they're going to perpetuate that situation.
Absolutely.
The thing is this. If you really think about it, it's not that much money difference, man. Like, we're talking about, unless you're buying like $100,000+ car, and if you are, you don't give a shit about the interest rates anyway. I'm just saying. So the people that this would quote unquote impact the most are the low income to mid income folks, and we're talking about 32 to 40,000, I think, is the mid-range price or something like that. So we're talking about $100 difference in payment. So really, it's a conversation that the salesperson needs to have with that buyer. And I know, I know what the answer to a lot of people are going to say. Well, we lose deals all the time for $20 and $30, but you lost that deal because you wanted to lose that deal, in my opinion. There's always ways to find little extra cash. What about insurance? What about if you can talk to the customer about maybe switching their insurance plan? You can find some savings there. What about, can you put up, and we over allow on trades all the time. I get that, but maybe that's something that you can work. What about pricing at your store? Are you still maintaining those really high, over 100% price restrictions, market adjustments, all those things? I mean, we have levers, is my point, that we can pull to kind of offset that a little bit. And to Chris Martinez and other guests that have said the same thing on the show, this isn't anything new, folks. Like, we've been in this situation before, worse, 10, 12% or something like that. In some situations, or in previous years, excuse me. So I don't know. Yes, it's something that is going to pump the brakes a little bit, which is what it's designed to do, but it's by any means something that's going to stop or prevent us from, having an amazing year.
Well, I definitely didn't say it was going to prevent us from having an amazing year. I think that the automotive industry is incredibly good at pivoting when they need to. Like, when everybody's getting paid on commission, you learn really quick how to pivot.
Well, but I mean, you do what you got to do.
Right, exactly. Do you have one?
No, I didn't prepare any news. What I wanted to do is do a highlight, really talk about maybe some of the 3 or 4 of the bigger situations that we went into in 2022. Just kind of a recap. So number 1 on the list for me was EVs. Obviously, big topic of the podcast, of the show. And it's interesting. It was like, it's funny how the perspective has shifted so much. When we started the show, EVs were like the thing. It was, like, it was for sure something that was hyper focused, not just from the industry side of things, but the consumer side of things as well. I mean, Tesla was selling cars like hotcakes. Now you're taking, $10,000 losses on them. People are not the consumer doesn't seem as excited about EV as they were, just a couple of months ago. And then we have some external factors impacting that too, like reduction in gas prices, some alternative technology, if I do say so, on here, like with Toyota. I know that that's been something that's been super hyper speculated, but their hydrogen technology is becoming more and more, or it's looking to become more and more possible. And if it does, will that render EV technology obsolete? Because let's face it, I mean, if you can run your car on hydrogen, or if you can have a water type sort of an engine, that works, that functions. I don't know, man. Like,
well, and then that goes back to the shortages in lithium,
right? And is that I was going to say, is that truly better for emissions? Because we talk about that on the EV side, and once you have the car, there's reductions, but there's still a lot of damage and pollution that goes in getting those batteries and making that car function. And then all this talk about getting everybody 100% EV by 2030, and the infrastructure that would cost, and I just
and the pushback that's starting to get to.
Right. Well, but I said it in the beginning when this was super, super hot, and it was on everybody's mind, and there was regulation and all this stuff was happening. It's like, it's one thing to say it, and there's another thing to actually achieve that. And what are we going to learn in the process, right, of getting there, that might render this whole thing not viable anymore? So that's one.
One of the Go ahead.
No, go. You were going to say something.
One of the other things that I was just reading before we started recording was about the different laws that different states have for vehicle automation. I mean, I hadn't even thought about that. It never even occurred to me that like laws, of course the states are going to have laws on whether or not you have to be behind the seat of your car while it's moving. But then the other one was that the insurance obligations dependent on the state, and some of the different states, your automotive insurance, if you have an autonomous vehicle, they're like $1 million or $5 million. It says Oklahoma requires $1 million, and California and Tennessee require $5 million in insurance coverage on autonomous vehicles. I was like, well, I hadn't thought of that aspect of the whole thing. Like, we're so gung-ho on all of these new technologies. But there's so many peripheral things that we don't look at.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, yeah. The other one that obviously is becoming more and more news, if you will, now is just a new car inventory situation. And that's an interesting one because we are starting to see more new inventory come back. We are starting to see that, obviously the impact on used car valuation. And I don't know, I hate the word normalizing because I don't think I think that we are forever changed and that we're not, the new normal still hasn't been defined. But it's interesting to see that, in a window, in a year worth of time, all the influx in the industry when it came to that.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of shortages, lots of challenges for a lot of dealerships, depending on their market and depending on their risk tolerance and things of that nature. And now we're starting to see some inventory influx, but it's not moving as fast. Mm-hmm. And so even with a decrease in inventory size, like let's say that we never get back to those levels, I still think that manufacturers are going to be pushed to offer some incentives. And so what is that going to do to, if that becomes reality, will that push them to, well, if we still have to incentivize these cars to move, do we have to go back to, just jamming just inventory down, dealerships' throats? I hope not. And I know it's a very premature statement, but, and obviously there's the consumer confidence index isn't at its peak. So it's not like you have a lot of customers it's not that you don't have customers that are willing to buy, it's that customers are looking for deals. And I think that dealers are exacerbating the slowdown by not adjusting their price and keeping those market adjustments in place. And so I don't know. Time will tell. It's a very interesting situation. My fear is that the longer inventory sits, it's going to push manufacturers to bring back some very high incentives, which we're already seeing on some manufacturers. And if they're back in that situation where they don't see an increase in profitability, they're going to be forced to go back to the old, potentially. I don't know, those are just thoughts that I have when it comes to that situation. Another one, obviously, Carvana was a big one this year. Mm-hmm. It's funny because by now Carvana should have gone out of business like 5 times and they're still not.
Yeah.
And so we talked about that in an episode. I think it was like 4 episodes ago or so, but it's a very interesting situation.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. I'm not even going to either. There could just be a lot of speculation. I'll restate what I said in that episode when you asked me the question. They have options, at least 3 or 4 that I can think of, and you can listen back to that episode for those. But they have alternatives. They have options. I think one of the smartest and dumbest things they did was the acquire Odessa. It's very smart from a logistical standpoint. Super bad for their books, but they have some alternatives, and so I think that I think it's not going to be as easy as people thought, right? I mean, there was a bunch of posts on LinkedIn recently about like basically just like Carvana is about to go out of business. This is what we could learn from that whole situation. And I think it's a little bit more complex than that, but certainly some lessons there. The biggest one for me is that for all this talk about the customer wanting to have a no in-store experience, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. If that were the case, they would have grown we would have woken up during COVID at some point in its worst state, and Carvana would represent 30 to 40, if not 50% of our business. And it's just, that's not the case. I think that a lot of people in the space, like people that are in the industry, talk a lot about the value of a end-to-end transaction with no dealer interaction, because they're in the business. They're in the business and they buy cars that way. So they think that the consumer has that same experience, and they just don't.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we want to say, like, I personally, and I've said this on the show multiple times, I buy a car now. It takes me literally 10 minutes via text message. I send the picture of the car that I want. If it's a dealership that I've bought a car from already, they have my information. I just reconfirm everything. And then I go and I sign papers and I leave. And it's a great experience. No questions, hands down. I wouldn't want to buy a car any other way. But the average consumer doesn't do that. You know what I mean?
One of the things that ever since we did the A to Z sync episode, one of the things I've been thinking about that a lot, just the one person whole way through. I think that that's the way it's going to go. I think that that's the best experience for the customer. And if we go off of your experience or my experiences purchasing cars, that's what we do. Like, I just go to my finance guy and I'm like, hey, this is what I want to buy. Do it for me. I don't talk to anybody else. I just go to the guy at the end of the funnel and deal with him directly. And it makes everything easier. And I think that instead of it being this end-to-end online experience, that it'll be an end-to-end one-person experience. I think that that's ideal.
Yeah, no, for sure. So those are 2 in 1, really, Carvana and digital retailing, but they kind of go hand in hand. But those were two big topics this year.
But I do think that if Carvana had done it right, and they hadn't had all of the mess ups and all of the issues and all of the suspiciousness around them, that they could have pivoted.
I don't think it's even that, Charity. I don't think you cannot do what they attempted to do cleanly. It's just, there's too many different laws in different states. How they're giving valuations for cars that they've never seen, touched. You know what I mean? It's very easy for them to buy a car and that car not have title issues. And then how do you resell that car? I mean, there's just, it would have the infrastructure with DMVs and all that stuff on a national level would need to be so spot on that there's just no way, you know what I mean? And then they're kind of like the nail in the coffin as they went crazy and they started buying these cars, trying to capture as much market share as they could by buying all this used inventory at really elevated prices, that when prices start to come down, they're going to feel it the most. But look, they're still kicking. I haven't seen a, bankruptcy issuing yet. So
we'll see.
We'll see. Time will tell. Either way, I mean, it's going to be an interesting ride to see how that plays out. But again, I stick to it. I don't think that the customers, I think it's the future, and I think more and more will happen, but I think it's going to take a lot longer time than a lot of these people are predicting or wanting to push customers to have a no touch experience. So anyway, so those are my four top ones.
Oh, those are
that I kind of wanted to recap here. Do you have anything else?
No, I was going to say, speaking of the future, GA4.
Yeah. So no blog post for this one either, folks. We are going to just dive into the episode here. So without further ado, let's get into it, and hope you guys get a lot of information from this one. I know you will. Take some notes and get ready. This is going to be an amazing transformation. I'm just going to say one thing about GA4 before we bring on George and have that conversation. The one thing that it's a mess. It's not that it's a mess. It looks different than what you're used to, and you're going to have to get accustomed to that. No question. But what you're going to be able to do really, 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 really well with GA4, which has me super excited, is you're going to be able to see the differentiation in traffic. What's generating you traffic organically, what's generating you traffic on a paid level, and see the impact of both. So I'm super excited about that, and you should be too. And you should be learning about this. It's here, it's coming, and you got to be prepared. So without further ado, let's introduce our very good friend, Mr. George Nenni. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in during this season. And we'll see you all very, very soon.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust 4Eyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try 4Eyes for free, visit 4eyes.io/dealertalk. That's 4eyes.io/dealertalk.
George Nenni, welcome, man. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing
well.
Awesome. So we kick things off here with an intro. So tell us about you.
So I got started in the car business in '93. Two of my older brothers did a startup in '89 called Dealer Specialties, which most people in automotive know that name, know that company. They came up with that concept and they refined it and began franchising it in '92. I joined in '93, and from '94 to 2000, we covered the country with Dealer Specialty franchisees. They sold that business in January of 2000 to Trader Publishing. That was a partnership between Cox and Landmark. They retired. I stayed on. Trader began to make acquisitions in DMS, CRM, digital marketing websites, and I was fortunate enough to run those businesses. I run a number of those businesses until 2017 when I left to start Generations Digital. So what we do is offer very intense reporting and consulting for dealers around digital marketing. We don't resell anything. We don't sell any services. We're not an agency, but we help dealers figure out what's working and what's not.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do here, right? We don't sell digital marketing.
Sounds like, yeah.
We inspect it. Yeah, so very cool. Yeah, so I'm very excited to talk to you. Obviously, the big topic that we wanted to cover with you is GA4. You wrote a book that both Cherry and I have bought and read multiple times.
Good, thank you.
And we really, really like it. I love that you made that information accessible to us early on, so we can really, because it is, if you haven't been in GA, first of all, if you haven't set up your GA4, you're already late. Second, if you're not in there right now, and I suspect that it's going to evolve and change some more between now and June or July, I think, of next year. But if you're not in there now, you're going to be shocked, because it is completely different than what we're accustomed to seeing right now in the current view. So how about we start with that question, like 50,000, George, what is the biggest change with GA4 in relationship to what we currently have now?
Sure. It moves. I'd say the biggest changes are probably two changes. One, it moves from a page-based measurement to event-based. So as opposed to everything being all about clicks and pages, which is really where measurement was 15 years ago or so, it's all event-based, and those events are, as you know, triggers that are fired on the site, either internally from the website or from third-party plugin tools. So that's the first big change. The other big change is the way that it deals with users versus sessions. And so for all of our popular dimensions that we used in Google Analytics, things like source medium, default channel grouping, those sort of things, there's two flavors of those now. There's going to be one that's going to be based on users and one based on sessions. And the way you tell the difference is you'll have first user source medium and then session source medium. So when you see first user as the prefix, you know that it's dealing with users. And then if you see session, of course, then it's dealing with sessions or traffic. Both are meaningful and interesting. The user helps answer the question in terms of who first brought the user to the site, how often do they return, and did they convert? And then the sessions are more about pure volume of traffic from sources.
Yeah, and it's a significant departure on the event-based side of it, in my opinion, because from a marketing standpoint, and obviously, I'd love to get your take on this, but from a marketing standpoint, the trap that we have right now is that unless you're digging deep and you're going to secondary dimensions, with a lot of companies do not do, right? They always talk about the source medium page. This is how many users, this is your bounce rate, these are your goals. For the most part, those are the conversations that you have. From an event base, and I've said this before, but if marketing is the message, then what we should be analyzing is the answer to that message. And the way to do that, in my opinion, is through events. That's why you want to set up events, even if you didn't, you want to set up your goals, but you also want to have events created within the current platform that you have right now, because it just gives you a better picture of what the customer is doing. It's not enough to say, hey, I got a customer to the website. No, it's what did they do once they got there? What buttons did they click? How many pictures did they look at? Did they submit a form? Did they call? Did they spend an amount of time here? Did they go to 4 or 5 different pages or just leave immediately? How impactful, how important is bounce rate? Because that was a big conversation, maybe not so much now, but in the past, it used to be this, oh, you got this huge bounce rate. Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Depends on how you're marketing. If you're marketing direct to VDP and your bounce rate is high, that's not a bad thing. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you like the event based setup better? Do you think that there's benefits to both? What's your take?
Yeah, I think it's more accurate. So there were limitations in Google Analytics Universal, the one we use now. For instance, it will only record one goal variety per session. So if I go in and look at 5 VDPs in a session, and I have VDPs as a goal, that records one goal, even though I looked at 5. So VDPs are always underreported in today's model. But with GA4, they'll be more accurate, right? Because you can have multiple events of the same fire, in the session. It doesn't really matter. So dealers will see that. They'll see that the way it compares, they would see a natural lift in VDPs. And so I like the approach better. I think it just gives you more opportunity for richness, and even there's parameters passed through the events. One particular company that seems to have a really good handle on that is Dealer Inspire. I've met with most website companies, or all website companies, and probably most plugin vendors, chat, trade, digital retailing, to see what their events look like and how they're rolling those out for GA4. And Dealer Inspire had a pretty nice approach where they're passing vehicle information through as parameters in the event, which is smart, right? That allows you to create custom dimensions in GA4 around used versus certified versus new, VDP views or whatever you're trying to measure. So you'll be able to pivot based on vehicle data.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. My biggest thing is just it's going to be, in my opinion, I think it's going to be really hard to have these, because now you're in the groove, right, with the current views and all, for the most part, this decision makers are used to seeing it and having those conversations from the view right now, and it is significantly different. It's going to be I think it's, for me, it was a little shocking when I went in there the first time. I was like, oh man, this is like. And also I feel like, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there's some stuff that they're going to do, but they haven't done yet. It feels like that to me. Like there's some stuff in GA4 that isn't, I don't know, functioning properly yet, or they're going to make some additions, because it feels like there's some stuff missing in there. I don't know. That's just my take. We'll see.
I suspect they'll probably add views. So views are not in there. The classic Google Analytics hierarchy is always, account level, then property, and then view. And in GA4, there's no views. It just stops at the property level. That creates a little bit of a challenge for, large dealer groups who want to allow, a third party to have their own view in Google Analytics. Now they're going to have to give them access to the direct property. So I think you're going to see a lot more agencies not get editor access and get read-only access, because folks are afraid that they'll accidentally turn off a conversion. I mean, there's a lot of easy damage you could do if you had access and didn't understand. So I bet your views will probably be something that rolls out, and there'll probably be some other functions. There are a number of things missing that are in the current universal, but it's also makes it for much simpler menus. It's a lot less busy to navigate through. And honestly, for you all, or for any listener who wants to get into GA4 and wants to just try to figure things out and play around a bit, go into the report snapshot. So go into reports and click on report snapshot, and then just spend 15 or 20 minutes staring at the screen, reading what's in front of you. And it will give you little clues and say, if you want to answer this type of question, here's the type of answer that you'd get. And when you click on that, you actually deep link into one of those report submenus, which again, some of them will be about users, some of them will be about sessions. And as you getting your head around that users versus sessions will allow you to navigate through the report snapshot and kind of say, all right, I'm kind of getting it now. I see why I would go to one area to answer one kind of question and then another area to get a different kind of question. And so and honestly, that's the way I really approached it. I really immersed in the tool for a number of months, obviously, and wrote the book based on that experience and looking at lots of videos and seeing our dealers and also transitioning all of our dealers over to the new system. It's almost like osmosis. The more you do that, the more you'll be like, okay, I know how to ask the system questions. Right.
So one thing that and kind of maybe as a safeguard for the current setup, what would you say is the one thing that dealers should do with the historical data that they have available? Because once, they're going to, my understanding is after a certain point, they're going to actually remove it. You won't even be able to access it, right? So should we be downloading at least a couple of years worth of information? Is it going to not make any difference anyway? So we don't have to worry about that. Like, what would you say to those that are concerned about that aspect, or who are measuring year over year or using historicals to track their progress or performance?
Yeah, we'll and I'll probably come up with some kind of instructional PDF that I'll share through LinkedIn. But yes, we'll archive data for dealers, next spring and summer. And really, I mean, offhand, maybe there's a number of different reports you'd want to do, but at the very least, I would run a source medium report for the last 24 months, maybe 25 months to catch an extra comparison. I like 25 months because when you look at October, you're able to get 3 Octobers. So look at the trailing 25 months. Open up all your rows to the maximum rows, 500 rows, because it's only going to export the number of rows you have, and then open up a secondary dimension for campaign. So now I've got source medium campaign. I've got all my fields. I mean, I use custom reports. So if you use custom reports, you can control those fields, session duration, pages per session, and then yes, export that out. And if you need to do batches, you could always do each year as a batch, and then probably put that into Google Sheets. And then at some point you could import that. We use a lot of Data Studio, Looker Studio now through Google. And so you could import that into Looker and have that be a good reference point. Again, some stuff will compare. I mean, when we're matching out our dealers today, and their organic search numbers in GA4 match their organic search numbers in Universal. So some stuff does match, some other stuff does not, because they introduced some new channels into the mix.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely that's critical. That's why I wanted to kind of pick your brain on some strategies there, because, you know, once that data goes away, man, like you'll be blind. You won't know if you're not storing that anywhere. You won't be able to compare and track, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think they've said 6 months. They would keep it on for 6 months,
right?
And then it would fall off. But you know, it's you know, I don't know how useful it'll be, but it's a small amount of effort, and you'd hate to, you know, miss that for you know, for some future use.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't get it back at all.
That's right.
So let's talk about third parties, right? Because that's a big one for me. First of all, I hate, and I've said this on the program several times, I hate that we have all these different widgets on our websites. Like, to me, it drives me insane. We should just have one. Right now, you have everything in one button. You can add like an AutoFi or a what's the other one, like a web buy or some of these other ones.
AutoFi, yeah, right.
Roadster, that do everything. One button. You can just call it buy now and it'll calculate your payment. You can check the value of your car. Like, it does everything that you want to do in one experience. So, but you know, the fact is that we are a FOMO industry. We just, you know, that's just the way that we are. Like, if we don't have a gajillion widgets on our website, we feel like we're going to miss that lead or we're going to miss that sale. So what would you say? How can we safeguard, or that's probably not the right word, but how can we prepare to track better this time around? How can we make sure that if we're going to have all these different widgets on our websites, how can we track that they're actually working, that they're worth the money that we're spending on them every single month?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we like plug-in widgets where they convert at a reasonable number. And so, you know, if it's a trade tool, a trade pending, or a Roadster or AutoFi digital retailing tool, you know, we want to track both when that tool is engaged. We also want to track when they get PII, personal information, from the tool. And so, like, for instance, for trade pending, that's the snap tool, and I think it's submit. When there's an event action that says submit, then the information's been submitted, right? So we want to track that. We know nationally what that number looks like. When we divide those submits divided by sessions, we know that might be, you know, 0.5 to 0.6% of a conversion point, right? But if we see a digital retailing tool that's not hitting that goal, then we would know that you know, perhaps it's not a good customer experience. The other piece, of course, is, does the showroom experience match the online experience? So if I spend a half hour online and get pre-approved and jump through all these hoops, and then show up at the dealership and have this piece of paper, and they say, George, honestly, you know, it's going to be a lot faster if you just give me your driver's license, we'll just get you in the system. You know, I say to myself, I've wasted my time. You know, they didn't pull up my record. They didn't pick up my deal midway through. And so it's a disconnect.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. That's just one of those things that, and you said it right now, like your digital experience should match your in-person experience. But man, some of these websites I go to sometimes, I just want to, it's like so much.
Like that one I showed you this morning.
Yeah, and now we're putting things on the SRP, like 6 different
CTAs on that one.
Well, that's one to measure. That's an easy one to measure. I mean, you get these dealers that put calls to action on the SRP. I mean, conversions on SRP happen rarely. I mean, people will tell you different, but when you measure it, you know, they convert off VDPs, and it makes sense. I mean, some SRPs are high functioning. I mean, I think maybe it's dealer reprocess, or there's others that will have some very high functioning SRPs that may give you that almost mini VDP experience. But by and large, you know, the SRP's goal is to get you to click deep to a VDP, and then to you know, eventually convert. So look at the pages that are converting. It's an easy report to run in GA Universal. Just go into goals, you know, conversions, and then goal URLs, and then just choose your goal. You'll see exactly what page it's happening on.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. Otherwise, just don't have a VDP. Just get rid of the VDP altogether and just, you know, have an SRP. Why have a VDP if you're but like, I don't know. I don't get it. It's like, dude, I just want you to see the photo and the price so that you can click and get more information. That's the path, right? And if I'm controlling that, that's what I want you to do.
I mean, in the end, yeah, it's Amazon, right? I mean, if I go and look for a collection of products, I get an SRP from Amazon. I don't convert. I don't put it in my basket from there typically, unless I'm reordering, some kind of household item. Generally, I'm converting from the VDP.
Yeah, no, for sure. So let's talk about okay. So you have that. Things are moving fast, if you will, on the digital side. I think everything is going now more to the VDP, right? So we're trying to drive more VDP traffic. Let's put it that way. So we're taking somebody from we're capturing consumer intent, and then we're driving them straight to the car. How is that experience going to change now with GA4? Because like I mentioned earlier, like there was a big push, and I still have conversations with some agencies that are like, oh yeah, your bounce rate here is like 70%. Yeah, but all I do is AIA, right? For example, all I'm doing is Facebook ads. So, and I'm driving customers straight to that VDP. So that bounce rate is going to be really high. What is your take on that? Is that still a metric that matters, and especially in the way that we're marketing today?
I mean, we don't use bounce rate a lot just because it can be so easily gamed. Oh, sorry, Charity, didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. Keep going.
Bounce rate it can be so easily kind of manipulated, either intentionally or accidentally. We're really trying to look at the page depth that someone goes through, and of course it depends on the page you're sending them to. I mean, if you bounce on the home page, it's much different than bouncing on a service scheduling page. But in GA4, it does away with session duration, pages per session, and bounce rate, and replaces them with one metric called engaged session, or engaged users. Again, that same thing for users and sessions. And the definition of an engaged session is one that stays for 10 seconds, or looks at more than one page, or has a conversion goal. And you can change that 10-second number. And so I think it simplifies it for the audience, for dealers. Typically, session duration, pages per session, bounce rate always move together in the same direction. So you could pick any one metric and they always move together. So why not try to simplify the way we measure quality sessions? And so now those columns in a source medium report would be like, sessions, users, engaged sessions, conversions. And so we can really simply see whether that session was engaged or not. They did reintroduce bounce rate, by the way. Oh, sorry. If you take engagement, 1 minus the engaged rate, that's now bounce rate. So I guess people cried and complained that they wanted to have bounce rate. So it's just the inversion of engagement. So it's kind of silly, but anyway, sorry, Charity.
No, that's fine. What do you see as being the biggest? But the way that you guys are talking about this, like I'm like barely keeping up, by the way.
Oh, come on.
And that is on a dealership level. When you go into a dealership and you're trying to explain all of this information to the people in the buildings, what do you foresee as being the most the thing that's going to hinder them the most? What area of GA4 is going to be the hardest one for dealerships to wrap their brain around? What do you think?
I don't know, but if they use the old system, probably just that things look different, that all the places they went to go run reports, that those don't exist, and now there's a whole different world. And so it's just, that's the biggest thing. I think it's dealers and users of GA4 just have to make a commitment and just get into the thing for 30 minutes every 2 weeks, maybe 30 minutes twice every, or I'm sorry, 2 times a week, 30 minutes at a time, or some kind of cadence, right? It's so if you move your home into a new city and you move into some of these gigantic neighborhoods, you may even need to use Waze the first time home from the office to get to your house because you don't know where you are, and it's just there's so many turns. But after 2 weeks, you know the neighborhood, right? You don't even look, you don't even pay attention. You could be on the phone and you know your way. And that's the way software is, right? You just got to commit to that. And the more time you do that, and over time it'll be osmosis, and you'll be like, I guess I know this better than I thought I did. I'm in here all the time. I know right where to go for my. And again, that report snapshot is a great place, I think, to start. It sounds silly, but just to wrap your whole head around the new metrics, where am I going to go to get those kind of answers? That'll probably be the biggest one, is just it's different, and I don't really know what I should do. Installing the code is easy. I mean, all the steps to get started are super easy. Dealers got to make sure that they're not outsourcing this to their agency or to their website provider. Since the website provider, if they say, hey, look, we're going to convert you automatically to GA4, don't worry about it, Joe, we got you. They're putting you into their master account, right? So if you leave that website provider, you will start over with GA4. That's a big deal. And the work involved for a dealer to get their own account to get set up is like, 8 minutes of time.
Right,
I mean, we did 200 dealers in 2 weeks back in May and June. It's really easy, and then you own it, and you never have to worry about owning your data,
your information.
What are some of the issues that you see with GA4?
For instance, segments. If you're a power user of GA Universal, you use segments a lot. And segments, once you put a segment on a report, it'll stay on there, and you can run all kinds of different slicing and dicing. With GA4, segments don't stay; they don't stick really well. So in most cases, you have to kind of manually create new segments as you go in. That's a little bit of a pain. I'm not sure the real-time reporting is always real time. So when you go in to watch events fire, or to watch yourself to troubleshoot events in the real time, I found it to be a little bit not really confident building. Those are probably a couple things, candidly, that just don't. It seem like they still need more work. But we use Data Studio, right? So we've already brought all the GA4 data into Data Studio and connected. You have to connect your Google Ads to GA4, just like you connected Google Ads to Google Analytics. So you need to make sure you have your agency do that connection as well. Then once you do, that data flows through into Data Studio. And so you can, I think that can help kind of make it a little bit more palatable for people who are used to digesting Data Studio. When you switch over to GA4, it'll still kind of feel the same, because it's all, the visualization is still the same. So, so long-winded answer and lots of pieces.
No.
So that brings a question. I don't know, George, if you know this answer, but there are a lot of things that connect through the Google Analytics API. With this change, is that data going to change? Do you need to reconnect? Like, do you know what's going to happen to those connections?
Yeah, I mean, they would have to just build new connections with those new data streams. Yeah, so it's
not. So you do have
just the new version of Excel. It's a brand new. Yes.
Got it. Okay. Wow.
And that's why all the events that are fired from third parties, like trade tools and digital retailing tools and websites, those all have to be redone too, right? So that's been the big effort that's been going on, and Brian Pasch and his organization have gotten a lot of energy around standardization of those events. But all the events that vendors and websites fired for GA Universal have to be redone to be GA4 compatible. And so they've been busy doing that, and they're rolling those out. Remora's got theirs out. Synchro has had theirs out for a couple years. Trade Pending has all theirs out. So there's a number of widgets and tools that are firing those. And so as soon as those start firing, then convert those over to conversions in GA4, and then you can start tracking them.
Right on. Yeah, man.
But on the API side, I would say absolutely yes. If you have an API where you're pulling reporting from GA Universal, that would have to just be redone, because the fields are different.
Wow. Okay. That's a big one. So I wanted to talk to you about, kind of staying with this, but at the same time expanding a little bit, because it's one of the things that I see as an issue within the industry, and that's the access to information and being able to connect the dots, right? I mean, GA is only a part of the picture, but there's all these other elements that you need in order to make decisions that really move the needle. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of connectivity within our space. And so there's a lot of pulling from all these different platforms and then integrating them somehow to, the ones that are doing it correctly anyway, to really see what's going on. What is your take with that? Does GA4 offer any advantages to doing that? Is there a way that we could be doing that better as an industry? What's your take?
I don't know that it'd be bringing it into GA4. I mean, the only thing you'd bring in there, I think, would be your Google Ads. You'd connect Google Ads. I think through the events you can pass vehicle information and other on-page information from the VDP, for instance, through the event as it fired. But I think in terms of integration and bringing data together, that would be in some sort of, like a data studio or like a
GDS,
a business intelligence tool, where you could bring it all together and have it visually look good. Like for instance, ours, we not only bring GA and GA4 in, we have an API through Google My Business, Google Business Profile, so we bring all that insights reporting over. So those are good applications where you can really Data Studio, now called Looker Studio from Google, accepts lots and lots of data inputs from all kinds of different sources.
Yeah. I know some companies that do that and put it together. The problem with it from internally, you're fine, but my understanding is that if you build a product, you can't sell it, right? So you can use it for internal purposes, but if you're, I don't know, if there's a way to put all your Auto Trader, all your ads, all your Facebook into one view, so you could really, I don't know if GA4 offers anything that's better to, connecting or being able to connect to some of these other ones and doing a one connection view or something like that.
I would do it in Data Studio instead of, I don't think there's a mechanic for doing it in GA4, but in Data Studio there is. So for instance, you could log into the back of Auto Trader, Car Gurus, and you could log all your VDPs, SRPs, and put that information into a Google Sheet, and then visualize that in Data Studio. So that's what we do. So that's just a better platform, I think, for bringing all those disparate data sources together. And GA4 would just be one of those different sources.
Very cool. Right on, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. This has been very insightful. We want to put a link to George's book in the show notes too, Charity.
Oh,
please.
yeah, for sure.
Yes, please do. Just if you search for my name on Amazon, you'll get to a link to the. You should get to a link to the book.
Your book and I have been to the gym. Probably we spent a month together at the gym.
Oh, good. Well, sorry to hear that. It's a little techie. It's probably boring. It's probably techie.
There was a lot of times where I was reading it and thinking, who comes up with this stuff? Like, it was just mind blown. And then just really impressed that you were able to articulate it and the form that because I run a business development office. And so I have to train anybody new all the time, and trying to explain an entire concept is so difficult, and you did a really good job.
Oh, thank you. It's I was in the same boat as everybody in March when they made the announcement. I was like, oh my goodness, really? We have until next July to switch. And so it was just, I pouted for a week, and then I'm like, all right, I got there's no change. My cheese has been moved, and so
I was wondering how you reacted when you found out that everything was changing.
And if they delayed it, I mean, there was somebody who posted on LinkedIn that said, hey, maybe they're going to delay it. That would make George mad. No, it would make me super happy. I mean, I'm in it with everybody else. I have to convert. It's a ton of work, So if they delayed it by a year, I would, go buy a nice bottle of wine.
George, a question came up as you guys were talking about that I didn't think, and maybe there is no correlation, but is there any correlation to this and the announcement of cookies?
I think to some degree. I mean, Google Analytics 4, kind of one of the taglines is built for a cookieless world, and it does use artificial intelligence supposedly behind the scenes to model audiences and to model some of the data, because it can't necessarily take advantage of cookies as it has in the past. But that's probably a more overarching thing. I mean, I think signal loss, loss of cookies, iOS 14.5 made it so device IDs couldn't be tracked on iPhones. iOS 15 made it so now they're spoofing our location. So signal loss will continue to get worse before it gets better. It'll probably never get better. So dealers just need to start always thinking about that, like audience. How can I get a unique audience? How can I attract an audience? How can I build first-party data through email collection, through pixeling my site? I mean, I think that's what I like to get a lot of people thinking about when they're talking about that overarching concept of cookies and it being harder to determine the intent of shoppers.
Mm-hmm.
What about collecting sign-in information on your website? What the terms and conditions?
I mean, you can get them to sign in. I mean, if there's a good, you're saying getting a consumer to sign in?
Yeah, just like they do on Amazon or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if there's something in it for them, I think they would say, I'm not giving up my PII. You know, when you look at, you know, we measure this for hundreds of dealers. When you look at, for instance, CarNow has chat and they have text. That's one of our favorite chat providers. And when you look at the number of people that click on one of those buttons or both of those buttons and then engage, the number of texts is like, you know, 10%, 5%, 1% of the chats. And the reason is because the next question when you hit text is what? First name, last name, phone number.
Right.
Everybody says, sorry, and go to the anonymous chat, right? And so that's just, you know, I just think when you do that, you're going to, and if you force, there's some, I'm trying to think who, there's chat providers out there that force, I think Podium forces first name, last name. Their chat conversion rates are a third of everybody else. It's just the reality of it. You can't get around it, you know. So if you measure those numbers, you see it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, that's you know, I think that's it's part of the future, right? These companies are going to self-regulate, you know, to a certain degree to keep the governments out, right? So there's a lot of that. And the other portion is, Google was doing this thing called Google Sandbox, which was supposed to allow them to continue to help on the marketing side of things. And then that I've, you know, read articles since that project was abandoned or whatever, but they do control like 63% browsing share. So what are they going to do? Are they just going to give that control up? I don't, you know, like they have to have a play here, right? Don't you think that there's?
Yeah, I think it just. I think if an advertiser is counting on third-party cookies and is bummed out that they're going away, those are probably not the kind of campaigns that any of our dealers would want to run. I think those third-party cookies affect probably the lowest quality of traffic out there, just in my opinion. I mean, it won't affect any of our customers. Mm-hmm. Third-party cookies going away. It's just using alternative means for being able to determine intent of shoppers versus, you know, some arbitrary third-party cookie that says we think this person was on AutoTrader or Cars.com and therefore isn't an auto intender. You know, those campaigns are always a bust, just for my opinion.
Right on. Well, there you have it, folks. George, thanks again for doing this, man. We really appreciate it. There is one question that we ask everybody that comes on the show, and that question is, where do you see the automotive industry headed in the next 5 years and why?
The entire industry in the next 5 years? I mean, I think the next 5 years will be, the big question is we're building all these electrical vehicles, and will consumers really buy them? Or will they start to kind of pile up and the automakers pivot because they mismatched, you know, supply and demand? That's not really a direction of where it goes. I mean, I think that's probably if one of the biggest questions, if not the biggest question. But I think for marketers, I mean, it really goes to that. It really goes to that signal loss kind of future of saying, you know, we've got all these challenges. Facebook campaigns in the last 12 to 18 months have gotten less effective because of some of the changes that Apple's made to iOS device tracking. And so those will continue to be a challenge for dealers. I think the most successful dealers will be ones that focus on their core, focus on fixed operations, focus on first-party data, and really build up a strong online reputation, build up strong first-party data sets, build strong audiences. That's another GA4 capability that's far stronger than Universal, and really start pivoting their marketing, you know, around their first-party data.
Right on. There you have it, folks. Well, George, Nenni, everybody, thanks, man, for doing this. We really appreciate you. That's all the time that we have for today. And as usual, we'll talk later.
We only host a well-respected. The vendor LexisNexis. We don't sell digital marketing.
What you do?
We inspect it with our DT vendor management.
Now more than ever, businesses need more efficient sales. That's why thousands of dealerships trust 4Eyes to help with things like automated inventory email updates and ensuring all of your leads get into the CRM. To try 4Eyes for free, visit 4eyes.io/dealertalk. That's 4eyes.io/dealertalk.